order block happens to be an area within the price chart where orders are sitting. So if we know that order block is an area where price are sitting, does it mean that anywhere on the chart is where orders are sitting? The answer is no. So in order for us to know where orders are sitting or where our order block is, basically, we need to understand the types of order block we have. And basically, we have just two types of order blocks. We have the bullish order block and the bearish order block. And just like as you can see on my screen, I have a simple diagram around here indicating the candlestick stuff. So in the bullish order block, the last bearish candle happens to be our bullish order block. And in the bearish order block, the last bullish candle before a movement to the downside happens to be our bearish order block. So it's as simple as that. Just have it at the back of your mind that in order for you to know a bullish order block, there needs to be a trend moving towards the upside. And the last bearish candle which you can find within that movement to the upside happens to be our bullish order block. And if you see a movement to the downside and you want to identify where your order block is sitting in that movement to the downside, then you need to identify the last bullish candlestick before the movement to the downside. Does it now mean that every bearish candle to the upside happens to be our order block? Or does it mean that every bullish candle when price is moving to the downside happens to be our order block? The answer here is no. And that will now leads us to the valid and the invalid order block. How you can actually know which one is a valid order block and which one is an invalid order block. So I will explain theoretically before we now move to the practical aspect of it, where I am going to show you everything on the chart. So in order for you to identify a valid order block, there are one or two rules that you are going to use to validate if a particular candle happens to be your order block or not. So let's say, for example, we want to identify a valid bullish order block. So a valid bullish order block, previously we need to have a trend that is creating something like this. And let's say we now have a movement to the upside like this. When we have a movement to the upside and we said an order block happens to be an area where orders are sitting. And I explained to you earlier that in a bullish movement, and this is a bullish movement, as you can see from here, it's a bullish movement. So in a bullish movement now, I explained to you that the last bearish candle, like this one here, the last bearish candle happens to be our order block. So we have established that we have a bullish movement here. So now that we have a bullish movement here, our last bearish candle that is formed around here, let's say around here, if we have a bearish candle around here now, that bearish candle prior to this movement to the upside happens to be our bullish order block. And that is how we'll keep on marking our bullish order block. And for a bearish order block, in this case, we have a bearish movement here. We have a bearish movement creating a series of lower lows, lower highs, lower lows, lower highs, and lower lows. So in order for us to identify our our, what is it called, our bearish order block. The bearish order block will happens to be the last bullish candle, which is the last bullish candle within this area before we now see this movement to the downside happens to be our order block. So our bearish order block will definitely be around this place. Let's say around this place, because price will be creating series of bullish candle to the upside before we now see this movement to the downside. So the last bullish candle that forms at the top aspect of it, which is at this point here, before this crash to the downside, happens to be our bearish order block. That is point number one. Point number two is, before you can mark an order block, that order block, be it a bullish order block or a bearish order block, must create a break of structure. So just as you can see here, I said this area here happens to be our area of bearish trend. So, and as you can see from here, we have a break of structure here. We also have a break of structure here. So the bullish candlestick which we find around here is valid since we have a break of structure. Sorry for the interruption. So I will continue from where I stopped, which happens. So if we establish a break of structure here and we have a bearish order block, a bearish candlestick here, while this price was moving to the upside and it breaks this structure, that validates this order block as a valid order block. And the same thing happens to this area as well. So if we have a bullish candlestick here followed by a break of structure, that validates this bullish candlestick as a valid order block. So this is all about order block in theoretical aspect, and now let's go straight into the practical aspect where I will show you everything on the chart. Like I have said, there are rules to identifying a valid order block, and the first rule is, one, you need to establish a trend. So you need to be able to see a trend on the price chart. And the second aspect of it is you need to identify a break of structure on that trend. So if you can identify a trend and you identify a break of structure, then from there it will now be easy for you to mark out your order block, irrespective of the trend, be it a bearish trend or a bullish trend. So using that rule now, let's apply that rule on this volatility 10 index chart, and we will be able to mark out our order block or find our order block. So starting from this point here, let's start from this area here. So if you look at that point, which is from here, so which is from this point up to this point here. So within this area now, you don't need to be told. You already know that this area is a bullish trend. So one, we have established that we have a bullish trend from here up to this point. So, and in a bullish trend, we'll be making series of higher highs, higher lows, higher highs, higher lows, and stuff like that, just as you can see on my screen. So now, we now said the second rule is we need to also establish that there's a break of structure. And if you look at it here, while it was making series of higher highs, higher lows, and stuff like that, so we have our break of structure identified. This is a break of structure. Let me mark it out here. This is a break of structure. So we also have a break of structure around this place. We have also a break of structure here. So we have a break of structure, and we were unable to make a new break of structure. So now that we have established that we have break of structure, break of structure, break of structure, we now said for every break of structure the last, if it's in the upside, just like this trend now is a bullish trend. So for every break of structure, after every break of structure, you need to look at the last bearish candle. So if you look at this area here where we have a break of structure here, this last red candle here, let me zoom it so that you can see. So this last red candle, which is this red candle here, this one here, happens to be our our bullish order block, which is from this point, we are going to mark the wick to the wick. So, which is the entire candle here happens to be our bullish order block. So after the other break of structure again, you can see we have another break of structure here to the upside. So this red candle here happens to be our bullish order block. So price came back and we have another break of structure at this point here to the upside. So this last red candle here happens to be our bullish order block. And the same thing happens to the bearish aspect of it as well. If we look at the bearish aspect here, you can see that from this point here, which is from here, we saw price moving towards the downside. So if price is moving towards the downside, we'll keep on seeing something like, let's say, a lower low, lower high, lower low, lower high, stuff like that here we get here. So for every break of structure that we observe, this is a break of structure, right? So the last bullish candle, which is, let's say, this one, so you mark the entire candle, happens to be our order block, you can see. So happens to be our order block. So that is how you can easily identify your order block. So the third rule that validates an order block is basically after the break of structure and you have identified the, let's say, the red candle, that red candle, there needs to be what we call an imbalance very close to that order block. So if there's an imbalance very close to that order block, that makes that order block a genuine or a strong and valid order block. In some cases, you will not find an imbalance very close to the order block and price will still react at that order block. But a genuine and good order block must break a structure and also leave behind an imbalance. So in my next video, I am going to explain what an imbalance is. So if you go to your other instruments, be it a forex instrument and stuff like that, you can easily identify this. So let me show you one more example before I call it a day. So if you look at this point here, we can establish that we have a low, a high, a low, and we have something like this. So in order for us to identify our order block here, the first rule is we need to see a trend. We have seen a trend to the downside. The second rule is there needs to be a break of structure, which we observe here. There's a break of structure, so to the downside. So after the break of structure, we need to mark out the opposite candle, which is our bullish candle here, since price is going to the downside, and this is the bullish candle. So this bullish candle here happens to be our bearish order block. So we'll mark the entire candle like this. Excuse me. We have to mark the entire candle like this. So you mark the wick if it has wick, and you can see. So that is our order block. And the other one, don't forget, I said it needs to have an imbalance. And if you look at this order block, it creates an imbalance. So there's an imbalance here. So there's an imbalance here. So this is a valid order block that price may likely come into and we may see a reaction to the downside. So this is all about a order block, or this is all about order block. And in my subsequent video, I will talk about how you can use it for your entry and how you can use it as exit.